as you started to develop your, creativity and started to go into this space and really define yourself as an artist, what are some of the challenges that have been defining moments for you throughout your career?
Ooh, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Just starting from the beginning, I would say working to get my name out there and staying consistent. Everyone who I meet now thinks that this all just happened like overnight for me. But I was really working, and I was an artist my whole life. So it's like nurturing that skill and that drive and that passion for so long, and seeing other people being able to do that on Instagram. That was a big thing for me when I first started. And I was getting a lot of support from not only people that knew me locally, but people that didn't even know who I was and like where I made my first sales. So things like that kind of kept me pushing and kept me going. But I always had a part-time job until 2021 was when I was able to go full-time as an artist. So
Nice.
It's definitely staying consistent and working when you don't want to work. Like when you get off of work, you got to come home and work for yourself. And I always try to make that like statement to people when they're trying to come up.
Yeah, one of the things, or the thing that we do at Assets, is help entrepreneurs start, grow businesses, and really determine when is the right point to take that leap. So you mean you didn't just like say one day, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm gonna just go into this full time?
No. Like, and it's still so scary to me now. But yeah, I definitely had a thought out plan. It wasn't until the killing of George Floyd, when I did that mural, that was when my career kind of blew up, like overnight, as people would say. But I was still doing work all the way up until that point. So it was great that I had that to kind of back me up. And this wasn't just the first thing that people have known me for. Because right the week before that was when I did the COVID mural. So people were still like ravishing over that piece. And then this happened as well. So it was just kind of everything all at once. And then I had to step back from my job, and I was like, I had so many things planned out up until like the end of the year to make sure that I was going to be okay.
So what does innovation look like in the artist community or in the creative space? Are there new things that you're looking to be more innovative or do new things, test new ideas?
I feel like I'm always trying to do new things. I feel like as artists, we get bored easily and we're always trying to do something different. Like when I do my paintings on canvas, I'm always trying to do something different with each piece and trying to push myself or use a new technique or style that I'm liking at that point. And then with murals, I'm still learning a lot about them. So working in a team and working with others who can help me in the skills that I'm lacking is something that I always search for too. So that's my kind of innovation. And the business side of that, I'm still learning all of that, but trying to utilize my resources and learning the grant world, and that's a whole new world for me. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
One of the things we're trying to focus on at Assets is this idea around being more human-centered. So really focusing on the person behind the business and learning more about what are the needs of the entrepreneur, what are some of the challenges you're facing as a person, because no matter what business you start multiple times over, you're the one that's going to be driving it. And we want to make sure that the entrepreneur behind the business is successful. What would you say are some things that entrepreneurs really need in Lancaster to become successable?
Organization, consistency is definitely two big ones for me, and that I pride myself on being. I mean, I was already an organized person, so that kind of worked to my advantage. But knowing who you are and who your audience is a big thing as well.
Yeah.
Who are some artists, whether locally or nationally or globally, that really inspire you and you're like, oh my gosh, these are my favorite artists. These are the people I love to look at their art.
So the first big, like, I want to say exhibit of somebody famous who I wanted to see was Frida Kahlo. And I got to take a bus trip to go see that in Brooklyn. And it was amazing. And like, I never thought I was going to be able to see her work in person. So that really moved me, as well as seeing Basquiat, Andy Warhol. I just recently went to Baltimore Museum of Art to see the Culture exhibit. So they had a lot of Black art in there. They had Jordan Castile, who's a well-known Black artist. They also had a lot of people. Even work from Kendrick Lamar and musically. They had so many things in that exhibit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I feel like they all of the musically, visually, all of the art of that intertwines for me. So I feel like I get inspiration from all of those things.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of music, is there a certain artist or genre of music that you listen to that you jam out while you're in your zone, while you're doing your paint brushes and strokes and things like that?
I feel like I need to listen to music more when I'm painting.
Okay.
I do sometimes, but like when I was just working on my solo show this past March, I was working on it all winter, but I was really very hard watching Survivor. It's one of my favorite shows. I love nature, so like I watched that as a kid with my parents. So like I watched every season when I was working on all of those five. Yes, there's like 40 something seasons.
Oh my
I even
goodness.
applied. So if you guys see me on Survivor,
okay.
Get out of here.
But yeah, I love watching Survivor. I watch like rewatching art shows like Face Off. They don't have too many. But music artists I like to listen to, obviously Kendrick Lamar, Childish Gambino is one of my favorites. I like old school hip hop and R&B. That's one of my go-to vibes.
Gotcha.
Some good choices.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure, definitely.
Yeah, I love the idea of your favorite local artists like binge watching Survivor while they like put together your piece. That's cool.
Yeah, I would have never thought that.
Like, they must have been so inspired.
It's just something that you can put on the background, and I know it's going to happen, so I don't really got to pay attention. I can still do work, you know, because if it's something that's too good, I'll distract me from getting stuff done.
Yeah, no serious podcasts or anything like that.
I do
like,
listen to some podcasts. A few podcasts, like a few local podcasts that I've been on as well. I like listening to others that I know that have been on those as well.
Yeah.
So when you guys get more, I'm excited to hear them as well. Yeah. But yeah, I do listen. I try to listen to audiobooks sometimes too.
So if you had to kind of step back and talk to your younger self, much younger self, what is some advice that you would give to a young Keisha?
I feel like I'm still feeling my soul as a child, but that I'm enough. Everything's okay. You're an amazing artist. People love you. Keep working hard. Yeah. All of those affirmations, I feel like that I say now is something that I needed as a child and that I didn't get as often as I do now. So it's a process accepting all of the love that I'm getting, but I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think all those affirmations, if you could tell young Jamie that'd be great. So.
Yeah.
Good.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what's your vision and idea of what your future of your career in artistry looks like? Like if you could look into the future 5, 10 years down the line, what would you love to see yourself doing?
Obviously still making art, but I want to be able to have my work travel and be in different cities. So that's something that I'm working towards now and getting into different galleries, possibly residencies, working with bigger brands and partnering, things like that. Yeah. So
awesome.
All the things, but just at a bigger capacity than what I'm doing now.
Kind of a random question, but why books? What was it about a bookstore that you guys, why was that the business that you guys wanted to venture? Typically with entrepreneurs these days, especially around our generation, it's just, I want to start an app. What was it about a bookstore that you guys wanted to, why you wanted to open that up?
For me, books have always been very special. I've always had like a really strong connection to reading, and it was just like the number one friend I always had. Like I grew up in a really small area, and I didn't have like a lot of people to like connect to who were like similar to me. And I always had a book that would like have a character that I could like relate to, or like a story that I could just like dive into. And I got to experience like a lot of really cool bookstores and like go on like bookstore tours in like different parts of the country, and I've like always like dreamed about like what would my future bookstore would look like. My diary from when I was 10 has drawings of what that future bookstore would look like.
Goodness.
And I really should unveil those, but I have no idea where they're at. And even when our first conversation between me and Teddy on the Hinge dating app, the app meant to be deleted.
Shout out to him.
We talked about books like in like the first like conversation, and like I don't know, it was just like a very
I feel
it was the right thing.
A lot of things that were happening in our relationship was like parallel to be like more foreshadowing to show us that we're gonna have a bookstore.
Yeah.
Like no joke, our first conversation was like, what would your superpower be? And she was like, to read any book super fast. And I was like, you already read fast, books fast.
And
But,
like retain all the knowledge.
Yeah.
I think that'd be crazy.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
And then I guess for me, it was kind of like growing up, bookstores, libraries weren't always the coolest. And a lot of people who looked like me weren't going to bookstores and libraries and stuff like that. But I remember me when I was like by myself, I'd go to the library, pick up a comic, and I wanted to change that narrative as far as things not being cool like that. You know what I mean? And so that was the biggest push.
As book lovers, who are your favorite authors, and maybe name top 3 books that you just absolutely adore and love?
So,
Elizabeth is ready.
I am ready.
Well, let me tell you.
So,
Let me pull out the list.
right now, my favorite author is R.F. Kuang.
Okay.
Yes. He also,
For the audience that can't see, Rami, our marketing specialist, is in the background fist pumping. So
I just started reading her books like 2 months ago, and I'm devouring them. Like one of her books is called Babel, and that was the first one I read. Insane. And then Yellowface, insane. And now I'm reading The Poppy Word, trauma. It's so good. I'm obsessed. I really like her writing style, and all of her books are very different from each other. And it just really shows like her mastery of writing and creating like these really intricate characters that you can like just see into their mind. Oh, amazing.
That's awesome.
we need to curate a book list when we
exactly.
put this episode out.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How about you, Teddy?
I'd say James Patterson.
Okay.
Big influence me growing up. I read a lot of like I read a lot of feel good books now. So I just finished reading Hector's Search for Happiness. And I just feel like I'm thinking a lot and thinking about different things we can do for the community. So I think books like that kind of help me keep me at bay and like look at the brighter things of life and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you guys know the Maximum Ride series?
I don't.
Oh,
Okay. I grew up with
Tell
that.
me more.
Essentially, it's just a bunch of kids who were created from test tubes. And then they... Saying out loud sounds kind of crazy. Yeah. And they all are like separated at birth, and then essentially they're siblings, but they're pretty much find each other, and they have the wings.
Yeah.
So test tubes, so they're given like abilities, but more so just the ability to flight,
Gotcha.
and then trying to fight bad guys essentially.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Sounds like a Netflix series.
It really
just
does.
waiting
It
to
kinda
come
sounds like
out.
11 in Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It does sound like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
11 before 11. Mhm.
That's right.
So throughout these challenges, like what keeps you guys motivated, inspired throughout this journey for you?
Honestly, people who say that bookstores are still around, that motivates me a lot. Honestly, people who are like, people still read books? Because I feel like there's a bad narrative with that also. Like people are just like, oh, I thought bookstores were a dying breed. I thought Kindles were taking over. But I don't hear too many people reading Kindles. So I think that is a big push. But also the community itself. Like the amount of people that we get that come in that are not from the community as well, because we have people who've come in and then they come back the next year and like, we were here last year and we wanted to come because it's our anniversary. And that's
awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So that's what pushes me at least.
What is some advice that you would give to an up and coming entrepreneur wanting to start their business?
Look inwards and then definitely look outwards. More so, we've met a lot of people who say, I want to open up a bookstore, but it's going to be a pipe dream. I'll wait till like I'm older. And it's like, no, like do the research, find a good place, and if you really believe in it, I genuinely believe it, you can do it. But also look at wherever you decide to do your business, look where that business is, see what the community wants. I'm not saying to cater to that, but be aware of that. Don't just be stubborn and like, no, I want to do it this way. If something else is doing well, like go with that.
Yeah.
Lean into it.
I would say just try anything. Like if there's something that like you have in your heart and like you're gonna like regret not doing it, like you have to just try it. Like you can like either be like, oh, I'll do it in 5 years and like see what happens, or you can in 5 years from now you can be like, oh yeah, I've been in business for 5 years and I'm like this successful because of that. And like anytime like there's a risk, I'm like even if you can like try to test drive the risk and like feel better about it, just try it. Just try anything.
Yeah. Also, don't think you're going to fail. Honestly, don't think you're going to fail, but be real with yourself. I'm not saying just be like, oh, we got this no matter what. But I'm saying like we don't let like doubt creep into us. No matter let's say there's a slow season, don't let any doubt keep on you. Just keep pushing. You're going to make it through. Have that confidence. Have that mindset for sure.
So I'm someone, admittedly, when I'm like have a really good joke, I'm like very, very proud of it. And I like to tell everyone that I'm proud of it. I'm like, wait, you didn't get it?
Yeah.
So for you guys, when you created Red Rose Books, who was the one that created the name and had READ, Red Rose for the Lancasters? Get it?
Yeah.
So I thought it was genius, right? So whose idea was it? And then based on whose idea was it, did you like brag like, wait, this is a really good name? So whose idea was it?
Who do you think it was?
Spicy.
Yeah. I think it's the book lover that like is very passionate about it. Was it yours?
Yes, it was me.
Awesome.
I came up with so many bad names.
No.
that I came up with a lot of bad names.
They weren't bad.
Teddy saying what he's supposed to say. He's just like, no, of course not.
Business partner
I love them all.
and partner.
Yeah.
I came up with so many names that we did not use that when we got to this one, I was like, I don't even know what a good name looks like.
Yeah.
I think you weren't that confident at
No,
first
I
about
was
this
not
one.
confident. There was one of the ones that I really liked that I was like crushed was the Lancaster Lit Shop. And I was like, it's like cool and trendy. And like everyone's like, no, people are gonna think you're selling like something else.
Facts. Yes.
Yep.
Probably. Yeah, you can always, well, never mind. Well, yeah, Red Rose Books, I saw the name, I was like, damn, that's good.
Yeah.
So,
Not knowing this beforehand, what's cool now is people who just seeing the store or tourists, they'll see it and they're like with their families like, read Rose Books. No, I think it's Red Rose Books. And they're having a whole debate outside. They're like, come inside. We'll talk to you about it. Yeah, come outside. We'll talk.
There's actually this really cool interview with Hosier when he was like very like early on, like right after he put out Take Me to Church. He was in his interview and someone was like, how do you say your name? Is it Hosier? Is it Hosier? And he was like, I really don't care as long as people are saying my name.
Oh, wow.
And I thought about that so many times since we've had Red Rose Books. So people were like, is it Reed or Red? I'm like, it really, it's like, you're saying it, so like that's all that matters. So it's like
it's also great for the SEO.
That's true. Yeah, it's kind of like the ending of a book or like a song, and people are like, "Is this what they meant by this ending, or is this what this song is about?" And they're like, "Leave it up to the consumer." And it just sparks these conversations and it pulls them in more. So that's cool that you figured that out. Yeah.
So you started SpiceKings October 2nd of 2020. Global pandemic. What made you want to start going right off the bat? Let's start a business. Everything's going crazy. What's going on?
So actually before the pandemic, this is like the end of 2019. I had an idea to get in the wedding industry and have this umbrella of things. You have a decorator, you'll have catering, which was going to be my new thing because I always like to cook, and DJs, sound, lighting, etc. And I was just gonna like what do you call it, when you hire other people, it's like
outsource.
Like outsource everybody else. So but the catering thing was a new thing I was gonna do. So, and I was seeing a lot of other cities like Atlanta, Houston. It was like guys who just love to cook, cooking out of their kitchen. And 2 years later, they got their own restaurant because they created a name. So created the name SpiceKings. And my nephew at the time, he lived in Vegas. And, he went to Cordon Bleu. So, he always cooked as well. And I'm like, yo, man, we should keep this SpiceKings thing going, and maybe look for like a food truck or something. And he came down for Thanksgiving. We kind of brainstorming because the page had already blew up before anything. Like I was literally cooking out of my home kitchen.
Wow.
And the page is blowing up. They're like, "Oh, where are you guys located?"
And this is an Instagram page.
This is an Instagram page, like straight from Instagram. I didn't put my name on it. I just start posting and adding people, and it started blowing up. People were inquiring, and I didn't say anything. I just kept like, coming soon, coming soon. That was like, I just kept saying coming soon. I didn't give any info, and the page just people start following people I know, and I'm like, it could turn into something. And then before you know it, the pandemic happened. I'm like, yo, places are closing down. We might want to, and then I wasn't working. I work construction. So I wasn't working. So I had time to, look at stuff and brainstorm. And I kept the post going throughout this time. And then we end up scoring a gig at Reverb in Reading, PA. Okay. So, and that's just off the page.
Wow.
Like, we didn't have a kitchen or anything. So they hired us because, at the time, certain bars, they couldn't serve people unless they had food. So we were outside on the patio. I had my propane griddle. I had a fryer, and we was slinging food like that.
Y'all was cooking outside.
Yeah, we was cooking outside.
Yeah.
So tell us the first few months of business. You're, started in the middle of a pandemic. Things seem to have been taken off. You're seeing some success and you've been able to pivot in real time. What started to happen and what were some of the challenges you saw along the way?
The biggest challenge, still to this day, I feel like the size of the kitchen we got couldn't really hold up to the volume of people we had. Like we had a line around the corner.
Wow.
And like it's been a thing, like your wait time, because like, hey, we got 2 fryers, bro.
Yeah.
There's only so many fries we can put in, bro. But I feel like that was the biggest thing. Also employees, keeping people that's consistent. And I've heard before I even opened, like, yo, you're going to go through a lot of people. And that's what we've been doing. So it's kind of like hard trying to keep a certain standard, when you don't have somebody under your wing to help you keep that standard, or somebody that I always say, and I still haven't found it to this day, somebody who cares about the brand just as much as you. They don't, they don't have to care about the business, but just care, be down with the brand. Like, yo, I want y'all to, I want this to be, and I would definitely let them showcase, like, yo, come up with a special next week. You know what I'm saying?
If you were looking at or talking to other aspiring entrepreneurs that are looking to start a business or want to go on their own journey, what advice would you give to them?
I would say first do your research, look at what other people is doing. Like, don't try to recreate the wheel, copy and paste. For real, copy and paste. Like, our base of our menu is like some of our favorite places, or some of our favorite dishes. And then we was like, oh, we don't have, what other place has it here? What other place has it here? And we're like, no. So, if we out of town, we can get it. So it's like, what do they say? Like, somebody has a need, you feel it. So that's what we were trying to do. Like, all right, we don't have this. Lancaster doesn't have this. All right. So try to find those things on the list, the top list, or even if it is here, there's no competition. There's other people selling crab fries or other people selling wings, but it's just, how are you going to shine outside of them? So like, make your wings with gold. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like,
hey,
gold
do
leaf
that
or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, make your food a thing. Make it yours. You can copy and paste, but make it yours. And I feel like people will eat that up.
Literally.
Another thing is like,
no pun intended.
Literally and figuratively.
But as far as just like, being outside the box and work at it, talk about it. Talk, even if you ain't got nothing going yet, just keep talking about it. Start brainstorming, make the brand. Like, I literally made SpiceKings with no kitchen. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, nothing in my personal kitchen. So it's like, if you want it, start talking about it, start doing it or moving towards it. You know what I'm saying? And, I'm making food and half the time it's in the fridge, and get thrown away. So it's like, that was my investment.
Yeah.
I was investing in what it was, and, it turned into something. So don't be scared to just go out and do it. Like, if, you ain't took the lash tech test or whatever, still show you doing lashes on your mom or your sister or something. You know, I'm just trying to, you know, at another whatever. But, you know, just start doing it. If you don't start, you know, it's never gonna happen. Like you said, if you don't miss the shots if you don't take it.
Yeah.
So.
Can you share with us your superhero origin story?
My superhero origin story. Wow. Well, I guess this is a superhero born in West Africa.
All right.
Country of Liberia. Like I said, born there. Came to the country when I was about a couple months shy of 5. My mother's side is Liberian. My dad's side is Guinean, which is a neighboring West African country. New York City was our first stop, Brooklyn and the Bronx, and moved to Colorado and then finished up in Lancaster. My dad was actually on a school visa, so attended Fordham in the Bronx, then switched to Colorado State, and then finished up in Millersville. So that was our like a journey throughout the United States of America. So I came to Lancaster when I was about 5, went through the school district of Lancaster, graduated at McCaskey, and then after high school, I joined the culinary world, you know, far as school and then just working in different facets of the industry. So, yeah.
Cool. Nice.
I guess that's my superhero.
Yeah, and tell us a little background story of how you opened up your business and tell the folks what's the name of your business and how did that come to fruition?
Okay, yeah. So I actually started my business in early 2017. And it was actually it was actually named Culinary Services by Chef Oliver, LLC. Fast forward to 2019, I actually became a Baldwin Fellow. If anybody's not familiar with that, it's a Baldwin Fellowship. It's a 18-month program through the Lancaster Community Foundation, where they pick, at least at the time, it was 7 people. I think it's up to 10 people now. It's a $5,000 grant, and they pick 7 people. You fill out an application, you either get accepted or you don't, and you kind of pick your own like project. So my project was going back home. Going back home, meaning West Africa, but not just in a physical sense, and like in a mental, spiritual, everything far as West Africa and the diaspora. So that was the plan.
So what sparked the entrepreneurial journey for you?
Yeah, so with the Baldwin, 2019, I actually switched because of that project. I actually switched my my business. So because when it was culinary services, I was just cooking food, you know, just the love of food in general. But then 2019, when I started that project, I started thinking deeper about really focusing on our ancestors from West Africa, and, you know, on the food, on the ingredients and everything that they brought to the world. So I actually changed. So the Culinary Services actually just became the parent company. And then, so under that, that's when Homage came about.
What's some of the cuisines, the food that you are bringing to Lancaster to help tell the story of the West African diaspora?
So the West African diaspora, and there's a bigger umbrella for West African diaspora. We could talk about people that went to Britain, different places, or just the African diaspora in general. But I focus on the West African diaspora via the Americas. So when they were taken from West Africa to the Americas, so the different regions we're talking about the American South. We're talking about the Caribbean, Central, and South America. And therefore, so those cuisines as well. So we're talking barbecue, we're talking soul food, and then obviously we're talking about cuisines of the Caribbean, different countries, and Central, and once again, South America. So it's pretty vast, and it gives me a wide variety of focus on a lot of different things. But the main thing to take from it is there is a linkage to West Africa. So when we talk about things like, you know, cassava or yuca, whatever you want to call it, or sweet potatoes, and all these different ingredients that a lot of slaves kind of brought over. So just kind of does that connection. Because a lot of people feel they're not familiar with West African food. But when you're eating Spanish food, when you're eating Southern food, when you're eating, food from Jamaica or Haiti or Brazil or all these different places, you're eating West African food.
Yeah. What advice would you give to people who are looking to be an entrepreneur or even just jump into the culinary industry itself? Like if you could talk to, Oliver 6 years ago or 7, 10, whenever the idea of opening your business up, what advice would you tell younger Oliver or an aspiring entrepreneur?
Well, as far as just the food service in general, it's work. Back when I was growing up, like when I started in the culinary world, which was, I'll show my age year, when I graduated high school in 1993, we didn't have all these like food service shows, and I don't even think Food Network was even operating in 1993. I think we had like PBS and the TLC channel, and that wasn't 24/7. Like you had to like catch it,
right?
In certain parts of the day. And now you have like obviously Food Network. There's so many food programs, and they're almost like spoiled. You know what I mean? But they don't see. They see the glory, to see what they're doing, like their TV, but they don't see like the behind the scenes and what it took these people to get here. And I think that's a disservice because, it's work. It's work. When I'm doing my food truck, that's like a 16-hour day. When I'm doing my market stand, Central Market doesn't have ventilation system. So all the food people, all that stuff, especially if you're doing hot food, like all that stuff has to be prepared off-site and brought in. And like I said, the market opens up at 6. I'm not starting cooking at 5 o'clock.
Right.
I go in like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'd be thinking that too. I'm like, I'm going 1 o'clock in the morning. I remember I used to be clubbing. You know what I mean? I used to be clubbing, and I'm going in the kitchen, and people are still clubbing. So it's funny, like how my life has, changed. I'm going in because. I gotta get the food ready, and then I gotta, transport it. It's work. It's work. So that thing that the people need to understand. As far as like the entrepreneurial side of it, depending on what your concentration is, and then obviously I'll talk from my experience and me being cook. I know how to cook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's all the elements of being an entrepreneur, right?
That's true.
You got to be a bookkeeper. You know what I mean? You gotta have all these different hats, and sometimes that's a big challenge.
What caused you to get into business for yourself? Because there's a similar or a parallel there that caused you to start your business.
Yeah, that's a good question. So after working 10 years in community organizing, doing social economic justice work, I realized I wanted to pivot. I realized I wanted a career change. And so I took a break from that work. But through that process, I was applying for jobs in industries that I felt like I wanted to obtain more information on and knowledge, and I was interested in working in. And I was getting rejection after rejection, not because I wasn't qualified or skilled enough or had the experience enough. I was getting rejected because I didn't have a college degree. And so I had to create my own path to opportunity because someone said that a piece of paper was more valuable than my experience on the job.
That's interesting. So what started the push towards that entrepreneurship that you said, you know what, I'm going to go do it on my own?
Yeah, I couldn't find a job. I could not find a job. And so I was like, dang, what am I going to do? And so I started to really look at those job descriptions and craft a company through the job descriptions. But that was also probably the thing that I did wrong was like I created a job for myself as opposed to a business. But really what pushed it over was that I decided that I was going to own my power. And I decided that I was going to own my experience and operate in my experience and my value as opposed to an organization being able to tell me you're not worthy enough to work for us because you don't have a college degree. But they'll let me consult with them. They'll let me sit on their boards. They'll let me sit on their committees, but they won't let me work for them as an employee because I didn't have a college degree. So I created an entryway into their organizations to still be able to do the impact and serve the community the way in which I want wanted to regardless.
Yeah. So that's an interesting way to kind of pivot in that moment. Did you have like guidance in that decision making or mentorship that helped you kind of see that? How did you see that during that time?
Yeah, I think I had a lot of people in my space at the time that were entrepreneurs that had their own businesses. I also was very good about networking and going to events to align myself with the type of people that I really wanted to work with, or even the type of behaviors that I wanted. I was watching other people and I was like, oh, okay, they're going to this event. They're doing this activity. They're learning about these things. How do I get in? And so I was able to just really align myself with the right group of people. And I think they all were putting bugs in my ear and were like, you could do this by yourself. Your skills are transferable. And I was like, I don't know. And so even when I think about being an organizer, we use the word coalition building. In business world, they use collaboration, partnership, strategic partnerships. And so it was transferable to a degree, right? And so I had to learn how to really use my skills and show people my skill set and show them that it was transferable, that I could come into these organizations and still provide value through my experience, especially being on the ground in the community and a lot of people wanting to have community impact that often don't have it or don't have it in an effective way.
You know, there's entrepreneurs that are listening to this right now. They're probably in the idea phase. They're thinking about making the leap into entrepreneurship, or they want to be an entrepreneur one day. As you think about your own journey, what are some things that an entrepreneur should consider as they embark on this new journey for themselves?
Yeah. If you want to be an entrepreneur, my advice is to start with solving a problem. You have to have a problem that you are solving so that you are viable to other people. You have to identify a real problem, not the problem that you think is the problem, but actually going into your target market and doing the research, asking the questions, and determining if this is a real pain point for that target market. So that's the first thing I would say. And then my second point I would make is that it's really critical to build relationships, because those relationships often lead to collaborations and to partnerships. And that opens the door for contracts, for opportunities, and even bigger impact as well.
And the next one you mentioned was
building relationships.
So
Yeah.
I can't just do this by myself and be siloed.
No. And let's take the program that Assets has, for example, right? Because I know you guys are coming up, like your applications are maybe about to close. And so my advice for folks who are going through that program and then the people who have gone through that program is, if you haven't talked to every single person inside of your cohort and took them out for coffee, do that. Make that a point. Any instructor, subject matter expert, facilitator, partner, sponsor, anyone who you may have come across while you were in the idea incubator, build a relationship with them, email them and say, hey, I went through this program. I'm really excited about the opportunities that I have now that I went through this program, and I would love to sit down with you and talk about where I'm at in my company today. That's a very concrete thing that people could do. And that is networking. That is building your social capital, because I'm going to remember the person that asked me for coffee. I'm going to remember that person. I'm going to say, oh, you know what? They have this business and, you know, like we should patronize that business, right? But we have to do a better job at walking into our opportunities and looking at how we expand those opportunities and those relationships, because social capital is even bigger than capital.
Well, what type of mindset do you need to have to be an entrepreneur?
I think you have to be ready. You have to be ready to take it on. Like in your mind, you have to say, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And once you get there, don't stop, because there are going to be hurdles along the way. And I like to use this word about like resiliency. Like, are you a resilient entrepreneur? And a resilient entrepreneur takes risks. A resilient entrepreneur is asking questions. And a resilient entrepreneur is taking initiative. And a resilient entrepreneur is building habits for better business practices.
I love that.
Being born into what feels like deep poverty, to the point of my birth mother feeling like she couldn't raise me and then placing me for adoption. And being adopted has been beautiful, right? Like it's a beautiful part of my journey to not have to grow up in foster care, even though it's led to a lot of struggles itself. So kind of starting at that point of being born into this kind of poverty situation to a teenager, being her feeling like she had no other choice but to place me for adoption, and then being adopted by a great family. It's kind of, I think my story starts with a lot of kind of like parallels, right? Like this kind of deeply sad thing and this deeply positive thing, right? My parents are wonderful people. I didn't have a bad upbringing by any means, but I think a lot of people, when we think about adoption, forget that those two moments live within minutes of each other. They live so close to each other. And so the same day that I was actually brought to the adoption agency that I was placed through was the same day that my parents came to inquire to adopt. So it's a cool part of my story, but I think it also adds to that, the weight of a mother placing her child for adoption because she feels like there's no other survival option, with the joy of my parents coming to see if this is how they're going to build their family. I think it's a good way to put, like, in a sense, my origin into like one story. Entrepreneurship is like undoubtedly full of an immense amount of rejection. And so if you have problems with rejection, then they're constant. And so I just remember like trying to like showcase that I do this now, and just like no after no after no, getting ghosted, like no email back, nobody wanting to pay me. And how crazy of a time that was to go through as somebody who already struggled with rejection issues. And just like having to face that like really, really boldly, but still feeling like I was supposed to do this. So just kind of charging on. And so I kept going. I have been a cold email wizard forever. And so I would cold email, I'd cold LinkedIn, I'd do whatever I could to get a speaking gig and to get in front of families. And it grew, like oddly enough and strangely enough, it kept growing. More and more people would find out about me, more and more agencies would find out about me. And so I started to kind of have a little bit of a name going into 2020, 2021. And then I feel like, I don't know if I changed or if the circumstances changed, but I was really interested in running a different kind of company. Like I would been on Twitter a lot, watching like tech companies evolve and watching kind of like that early tech era on Twitter evolve. And I was really like, man, I feel like I could do something in adoption like this. And so in 2021, in May of 2021, I went to Atlanta for a weekend, and I just sat in the hotel room and wrote the like original plan for identity. And that started the next wave of, I think, just going to war with myself, actually. And I didn't realize that when I did it. When I did it, I kind of thought, oh, this is just a great idea. It's very innovative. People will like it. It'll be successful. And I thought it would be successful really quickly because I was stupid. And so I went immediately into kind of just like thinking, okay, this is going to work, pushing, and losing again. Like running into a ton of rejection again. Presenting this idea that I felt was really good to modernize what's called post-placement support for adoptive and foster families. I thought people would just sign up for it. I was like, if we take all of this and make it on an app for a family, that seems like a great idea. And in theory, it is still a pretty good idea for parents to be able to have parenting resources on the go, on the fly, through whichever agency or state they're placing through. But people just didn't like the idea that much. And so I just kept hearing no, like over and over and over, from the main people that I was trying to sell it to. Not to mention I was trying to pitch it too. So like I was trying to raise capital around it, and I was learning how bad of I was at pitching, like how bad I was at selling, how bad I was at all these things. And so I'd just gone through like one phase of rejection and finally kind of built a name, and like people wanted me to speak finally. But now I'm trying to do this next thing, and I'm experiencing a whole nother phase of rejection. And that one was way more brutal. Like that one was like leaving pitch calls and crying, like kind of brutal. And that happened for months, for actually like a year and a half it happened. And I think the thing that emerged out of that feels like the coming into like the superhero mode of it was just becoming so unafraid. Like at some point or another, I mean, you don't have to, but I think if you want to build like a great company or a great brand, that the fear has to be so quiet that you're able to do the big, bold things. And I don't know what broke exactly. And I think it, might be products starting to work or people starting to buy in, but something broke kind of as I stopped pitching it to be like an investment, stopped trying to sell it the way that I was selling it, and just leaned into the parts of it that I felt were really dynamic, and just really stopped being afraid. I was like, I've already lost. Like, I have no money right now. Like, there were things that happened because I was so dedicated to the idea. Like, there was so much money I lost. Like, an apartment I almost lost. Like, literally, eviction was knocking at my door at one point because I was so invested in building this one thing that when I stopped and I actually just stepped back and did the thing that I thought maybe would just work, the walls came down and I was able to run.
You mentioned a lot about rejection and your upbringing and how it's translated into almost a superpower in overcoming that as an entrepreneur. A lot of the work that you do does include racial dynamics in it, right? Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about the racial dynamics around not only adoption, but even in your journey as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So in adoption is easier to start with. In adoption, like interracial adoption and adoption across racial lines is so common, right? We see it depicted on TV. It's not an unusual thing for most people to run into. And so that has always been a very kind of like normalized part of my life, even though it's included a lot of cultural loss for me. And so I think it's an interesting part of my work because racial dynamics are very politicized nowadays. When I feel like the work that we do at Identity when it comes to like racial dynamics is not very political. It's not meant to be political because the truth of the matter is you're adopting a child of a different race. So your political alignments don't really affect the fact that like their hair is different, their skin is different. Their culture of origin still exists, right? And so, and if you grow up and you're a black kid growing up in a white community, like that one of one feeling has nothing political to do with it, right? And so I think something unique about our racial work is that it doesn't exist on a political side. We work with communities that are very conservative, that we can actually help understand the importance of racial identity in a way that is not, I think, political, which I find to be very powerful, right?
This is the Built by Us podcast, brought to you by Assets. Visit us at assetspa.org to learn more about the products and services we provide. And you can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube.